Hello everyone, I'll continue the series on Wesley So with one of my most favorite games played by him in the early days. This was played in 2007 in the World Youth Championship when Wesley So was only 13, about to turn 14, and his opponent was David Howell, who is one of the best English players at the time. He was born in 91, so he was 2 years older than Wesley, so he had a bit more time to progress in chess. However, their rating was somewhat similar, perhaps only a few points difference. They were both above 2500 and really strong. And in the game, Wesley So opened with pawn to e4, David Howell played e5, we have knight f3, knight to c6, and now Wesley doesn't go for the Spanish or for the Italian, he went for the four knights with knight to c3. And after knight to f6, we have the Scotch variation of the four knights, and David Howell could still decline the accepted Scotch, but he plays e takes d4, and this is now the Scotch variation accepted of the four knights, which is a very hard opening for white to play, and apparently black is supposed to have equalized already in this line, but white has a lot of attacking chances and a lot of pressure in the center in exchange for that. So now we have knight takes d4, bishop to b4 is played now, pinning the c3 knight, knight takes c6, b takes c6, bishop to d3. This is all, by the way, standard theory and the most common moves, and according to the engines, black is supposed to have a tiny edge, but the position is pretty much equal. And of course, white can now get his own pawns doubled along the c-file, so neither side really has a significant structural or positional disadvantage just yet. Here we have d5, which is the most active move, e takes d5, c takes d5. These are all still fairly common theoretical moves. There have been more than 200 games played from this position on top level. Castles, castles, bishop to g5, and now c6 is played by David Howell, solidifying the position. And this is, you could say, the start of the game, the end of the opening. And once again, you can see that black can choose to give up the bishop pair in exchange for doubling white's c-pawns. Black has repaired his central pawn structure. Now the d and the c-pawns actually look good in the center, and they provide a lot of support. In any case, when this bishop gets exchanged, the knight will have a tremendous outpost on the e4 square. The c4 square is weak as well, and so both sides have something to play for. But technically, black is supposed to be slightly better, but it's equal. Here Wesley So continues with with queen to f3. And we have bishop to e7. Now, of course, Wesley was threatening to double black's pawns by taking on f6, queen takes f6, queen takes, and David would have to recapture with the g pawn. Now the game continues with rook f to e1, rook to e8, both sides develop normally, sensible chess following normal opening principles, h3, h6, and now bishop to f4 was played by Wesley So. And here, in this position, the game could have gone normally. In fact, there have been more than 50 games played from this exact position, and they would normally continue with bishop to e6, rook a to d1, bishop to d6. Perhaps the bishops will get exchanged, perhaps not, but the position is pretty much equal. However, after bishop to f4, David Howell played a one-move tactical blunder, which Wesley So exploited immediately, and this is why I love this game, and this is why I like the way Wesley So started developing his chess career, and this is how he played for the next 10 years. Now he's 25, so this was played a bit more than 10 years ago. And here David Howell played knight to h7. Now, what the idea of this move was, I guess he wanted to play the moves g5 and f5, trying to get some pressure on the king side, and then to reroute the knight back to f6. However, there's an immediate tactical problem which Wesley spots instantly, and he plays bishop takes h6, sacrificing a piece temporarily. And now, of course, probably David Howell started calculating, and he must have missed this move completely, because the variation actually isn't that hard to calculate. In the game, he didn't take the bishop. If he took the bishop with g takes h6, then bishop h7 check, grabbing the knight, king takes h7, queen takes f7 check, and you can already see that white has more than enough for the piece. Of course, there's the 2 pawns as well, so 2 pawns for the piece, but white is completely winning, and he has more than enough compensation. There's nothing, in fact, black can do. So now, in this position, black is forced to play king to h8, queen g6, Once again, there's almost no defense to the h6 pawn. If black tries to defend with the bishop, then queen takes c6 and the rook is attacked, and the position is horrible. The position is just horrible. And in fact, if the bishop moves at any point, the rook is pinned, so queen and rook are on the e8 rook, so the bishop can't move anyway. So too many things in the position are loose. The c6 pawn, the e8 rook, the h6 pawn, and in fact the rook on a8, which will become a tactical problem very soon. So now after queen to g6, black would be forced to play bishop to d7, at least connecting rooks to relieve himself of this pin. And now after queen takes h6, king to g8, queen to g6 check. Now the best move would be king to f8. This would be survivable. However, the most logical continuation with king to h8 loses immediately to rook to e5. And now, of course, white is threatening checkmate in one move. So bishop to g5 would have to be played, giving up the exchange, blocking the route for the rook to the h5 square. And the game would continue with rook takes g5, queen takes g5, queen takes g5. And now in this position, you can see that white has a queen for two rooks, but he has three extra pawns as well. And the black king is so misplaced and so unsafe that the position just can't be survived, and black would be forced to resign here. So this is the most forcing variation after bishop takes h6 if black should accept the sacrifice. And David Howell, of course, saw this, and he went for the lesser evil move, the lesser evil option. He played knight to g5, admitting his mistake and just saying, okay, I'm a pawn down. Now we have bishop takes g5, bishop takes g5, rook takes e8, queen takes e8, and now another remarkable move which made this game memorable, in fact, and which made this game one of Wesley's most beautiful early games. I wonder if you can spot the move. There's another loose piece in the position. I already gave you a hint, and that's the rook on a8. And the bishop is loose as well on g5. So Wesley simply takes on d5. Knight takes d5. And now, of course, David Howell didn't take the knight. If he takes with c takes d5, queen takes d5 is double attacking the bishop and the rook. And there's nothing black can do to avoid, to prevent white regaining the piece. So after knight takes d5, David Howell actually played bishop to d8, saving his bishop. But now this is just 2 pawns up and much more activity for white. And the position is completely lost, and the conversion was fairly easy and fairly quick. We have knight to e3, rook to b8 attacking the b2 pawn, b3, queen to e5 attacking the rook on a1. Of course, it wouldn't be nice to blunder a rook in such a good position. Rook d1, bishop to c7, now of course threatening a lot of nasty checks along the h2, along the second rank and the first rank. So we have bishop to c4, ignoring that, of course. And there's nothing black could gain from that, and white has just counterattacked the f7 pawn, and of course now David Howell has to react. There's no point in checking here, because after king to f1, queen to h1 check, king to e2 is completely winning for white. The queen is misplaced, it can't even take on g2, and black is lost. So here he played bishop to e6, accepting a trade. Bishop takes, queen to f5. Now Wesley is of course going for a queen trade. David Howell declines. Queen to e8, rook to d4, activating the rook. G6, queen to e4, once again offering a trade of queens. Queen f8, and now queen takes c6. 3 pawns up, but okay, what else could he have done? And of course, I believe that most young chess players get told by their coaches not to resign even in such positions, because you never know when the concentration will drop and when your opponent is going to miss something, blunder a piece or something. Of course, both of them were already 2500, but you can't expect young chess players to have the level of concentration of professionals, so anything is still possible. Bishop to b6 attacking the rook. Rook d3, of course not accepting double pawns, because black would have taken here. Rook c8 attacking the queen, queen to f3, I'm sorry. And now bishop takes c3 is played, queen takes c3 and rook takes c2, regaining 1 pawn, but now Wesley can play queen takes a7. Queen e8, queen to e3, queen to c8, there's nothing David Howell can do. And after queen e7, queen to f5, rook to d8 check, now the king is in trouble as well, and the 2 pawns and the queen aren't enough to to prevent the checks and to prevent an eventual checkmate. And the other factor in the position is the loose rook on the c2 square, which will be loose and undefended as soon as the queen moves. And the only way to prevent the checks is to defend with the queen, so the position is just lost. King to g7, queen f8 check, king f6, queen to d6 check, king to g5, and now h4 was the winning move. And in this position, David Howell resigned. Of course, he can't take the pawn, he can't do anything else. If he takes the pawn, this is just mate in two, simply with queen to g3, and after king h5, rook h8 checkmate. If he doesn't take the pawn, then what else can he do? The best move would be, I don't even know what the best move would be. I think king to h6 is the best option, but now queen to f8 check, king to h5, let's say, queen to h8 check, king to g4, and now rook to d4 check would be just busted, and there's nothing black could do. This is a forced mate in 19 moves, and if black goes wrong, then it's mate in 2, so a completely losing position. And so after the move h4, David Howell in fact resigned, and this was a great victory for Wesley So. He didn't get to win the championship, but he had a great performance, and this was one of his best years as a chess child prodigy, and one of the years in which he developed the most. So I'm going to cover a few more games from 2007 and then from 2008 in the series about Wesley So, and stay tuned. I hope you liked this game, this tactical brilliant game by Wesley So, and thanks very much for watching. See you later. Bye.